And now it's happening. And I'm just humbled by all of you being here. And I look over at my wife and daughter, and I'm just so proud of our city and county of Honolulu and our state of Hawaii and all of us who are here because we care about our blue planet. We care about our Mayas, Mayor Garcetti's Maya, and all of our other Mayas and sons and granddaughters in a better world for all of us. You know, I'm also proud of the fact that we get to share with you our unique heritage and culture, which is different than anywhere else in America. In fact, I like to say, welcome all of you from America to Hawaii. And you heard William Ila of the Department of Homeland's chair and Misty Kalai chant and tell stories. And you know, when I became mayor, I asked Misty Kalai to become the executive director of the Mayor's Office of Culture and the Arts, the first Native Hawaiian to do so. And I told her her number one goal is to make sure that our administration walks in the footprints of those who walked in these sands way before guys like me, white men, showed up. When Captain Cook showed up off the shores of the Big Island, and he died at Kealakekua Bay in a skirmish with Native Hawaiians, there were about somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million Native Hawaiians in the Hawaiian Islands. Today, we have 1.3, 1.4 million on all of the Hawaiian Islands. And that was in the late 1780s, 90s. And by the 1860s, less than 60,000 people lived in the Hawaiian Islands. Almost every Native Hawaiian died. The Ali'i died. Those are the kings and queens. Their children died. Imagine living in a time like that, less than 60 years, seeing everyone you know not being able to live here because of smallpox. They had no immunity to disease of white men. Not only did they die, but our species went extinct. People say that if Darwin would have come to Hawaii instead of the Galapagos, he would have gone crazy over the diversity in our species. We have a bird called the honey creeper. It has a curved beak, very colorful, red and black, black and yellow. And if you go to our museums, the Hawaiian Museum's Bishop Museum, you'll see a beautiful feather cape that the Ali'i wore. Well, with Captain Cook came barrels of water with mosquitoes, and they have bird malaria, and our birds were not immune, so every bird that was below a certain elevation died, all of our native species, and they only live high in the mountains today. But we're seeing, like many places in the world, record heat. In the month of June, we've broken records on all islands, hotter than ever. And so the heat is rising within the mountains too, and the mosquitoes are going higher, and more of those birds that are hanging on for their dear life are going extinct. So it's important what we do here today. And as was mentioned, we gave this lei. And for those who don't want to wear, and I understand some of it is maybe you're having itchy neck, and some of you may be not wanting to have a picture going home with you with the lei on. And I understand. And even our own President Barack Obama, who Hawaii voted into office twice at 79%. We're a very blue state. Hillary Clinton got 69% of the vote in Hawaii, but he would not wear a lei here. And I'd greet him at the airport with a plumeria lei. It's my favorite. And his Secret Service would take it. So no offense, and you can put it by your name tag, and we totally understand. But as was mentioned, it is with thought when they make a lei. They think about you as they pick the flower, as they string it, and then it's given to you. And I wanted to tell you that you're so important to us. In Hawaii, it's the most isolated group of islands anywhere in the world from a major landmass. And you know that, just flying 5 hours to get here. Closest place you could come from, or Japan, it's 8 hours. We want to know who you are. We want to know where you're from. We want to know what you're about, because we want to be connected. We want the kako together. If you came with me on New Year's Day and you came to our family celebrations with my wife, and you're new, they'll say, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? Where do you work? They want to know because they want to connect. They're not just niele or nosy. They want to know, who are you and how do I know whether I have a connection to you? It's important. The other thing is we sit in a very powerful place in Manoa Valley. I live in this valley. The University of Hawaii is here. 34,000 college kids come to school here every day. But we're in the Ahupua'a of Waikiki, and you're staying in hotels in Waikiki. Ahupua'a is a land division. It's pie-shaped, and the Li'i of old managed the land through the Ahupua'a system. It was a very resilient and very sustainable way of managing. 1 million people on an island, no container ships showed up, no planes landed to bring in food. They fed everyone in a very sustainable way. More access to the ocean where they catch fish, and up in the mountains they needed the trees for canoe and those kind of things. So they managed well. But this is also the East-West Center, a dream of our first Democratic governor, John A. Burns, who was the chief of police during World War II and stood up for Japanese Americans that the FBI wanted to intern. So people got interned here, but not to the degree that the West Coast saw, because this Haole man, I'm Haole, many of you are Haole here today, ha is breath. Aloha is giving breath. That's why it's such a powerful word. It's giving my breath to you when I say aloha. And when you say it back, you're giving me your breath. Ha'ole, ha, breath, ole is without. So Native Hawaiians thought we looked dead because we were pale, us white men. But they call us haole. But Governor Burns had this dream with our president, John F. Kennedy, to create this East-West Center, to bring the East and the West together here in the middle of the Pacific. And we sit in this beautiful center, in this dream, in a building designed by I.M. Pei back in the 1960s when he wasn't all that famous, but a man who fled Mao in China for the United States and made it his home, and then brought incredible architecture to the entire world. And he brought architecture here. It was also the vision of our late senior senator, Daniel Keanoe, who I worked for and where I met my wife. She was going to Georgetown and came to do a clerkship, and I would always tell Senator, you gave me the greatest gift. I got to meet my wife. I think he thought, why did she marry this Haole boy? But it was a dream of him too. So today, we're going to talk about two things, vision and unity. And you think about vision and the Paris Commitment, and so many mayors are all in. I'm so proud in Hawaii that every mayor from all the counties, we only have 4, but every mayor from the 4 counties and our governor, within a day of Trump pulling out, we all leaned in and committed to stay on the Accords. And many cities that are here today and around our country stepped in. That's the commitment. The unity part, which we're going to hear from Mayor Garcetti talk about, is what do we do? It's great to say we're in, but what actions do we take? And we're building on the precedent of Mayor Walsh, who's here today from Boston. He had the first Climate Mayor Summit. Mayor Garcetti started it, but then Mayor Walsh said, let's do a summit before the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And we're following in Mayor Walsh's footsteps. And he set a very high bar. And I think we're going to hit that bar. And I hope that this becomes an annual summit for years ongoing, because it's not something, a crisis or an emergency that you solve instantly, but we need to take action. It is the challenge of our time. But we need to gather together, and we need to keep that momentum going. I wanted to emphasize, I woke up on Tuesday morning at 3 with thunder and lightning and pouring rain, and I thought, oh man, it's been beautiful for 3 weeks, not a cloud in the sky. Mayors are coming. And I think about us as the blue continent. We're surrounded by this incredible ocean. The Native Hawaiians did not look at it as a division, but a way to connect. Their double hull sailing canoe, you're going to hear from Nainoa Thompson at lunch. They sailed round trip between Tahiti and Hawaii using the stars way before Columbus would leave the side of land. But in this blue continent, we saw an upper level cold front first forever come into Hawaii during the summer. They created this rain and this disturbance. We had the wettest June 2 days ago since we've been recording rainfall in the city and county of Honolulu, and the wettest June since we've been recording rainfall. And we just had our first tropical storm in the Eastern Pacific declared. Don't worry, it's going to fall apart. They're telling us way before it gets to Hawaii, but very early in our hurricane season. And we're concerned. It is an emergency. It is a crisis. But there are things like this. Just 2 weeks ago, the Trump administration gutted the Clean Power Plan, gutted the plan. And they said they're on the right side of history. And I say on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and those yet born, how dare they do that? We need to stand up, not retreat, but move forward and fight for a better future, more resilient future for our small planet. So as I mentioned, we're still in. I dedicated my entire stay in this city 2 weeks ago to the climate crisis. I talked about the commitments we made to to make sure our public fleet is all renewable energy by 2035. I think we're going to get there before that with your help and what Mayor Garcetti is going to be announcing today. A private fleet by 2045. We replaced all of our street lights, 53,000, to LED. We are purchasing electric buses. We're going to have probably the first hybrid electric airplane flying between this island and some of the neighbor islands, experience solar panels. I don't know if I'm going to fly in it right away. I'm going to wait for others. But I'm afraid if they're coming down and the sun goes away, but anyway. And we're working towards we have deep seawater air conditioning coming online, and we're focusing on becoming a carbon neutral economy by 2045. But we're going to all learn together, all of us today. We're going to learn about, I'm anxious here about micromobility and scooters and bikes, insurance coverage for financial risk. We have Bank of America here. How do we work with local philanthropy and disaster response, and so much more. I do want to thank two folks here today. One is Bank of America Merrill Lynch is our lead sponsor. As you know, they had a huge presence in Boston last year, and they stepped up again this year. And we're going to hear from them and what they're doing to help mitigate financial risk in the face of climate change. And then there's David Miller. Where's David Miller? Could you just stand up? David Miller of C40, North America. A round of applause. He's the former mayor of Toronto, one very cool city. I've not been there, but I hear it's so cool. I got to get there. But I find that whenever I go to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, there's usually some Canadian mayors. And by 10:30 at night, if you're standing around a bar drinking a beer, you're with Canadian mayors. And they're laid back. They're real people. They're fun to hang with. And I always tell them, don't worry, we don't think you burned the White House. So it's just so glad that C40 stepped up and helped us. This would not have happened without them. We want to thank them. So whether you're a mayor from a giant city or a small metropolis or a small town, you're in the right home today at this panel. You're in the exact right place. And together we're going to work on innovation. We're going to work on best practices, and we're going to do it in a Kako way together. The founder of the Climate Mayors is from a city a little larger than Honolulu. This effort was started in 2014. It was started with Anise Parker of Houston. Many of you remember, awesome mayor, very progressive mayor, and is still doing incredible things. And Michael Nutter, the mayor of Philadelphia, who's going to be coming for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He's no longer mayor, but he is committed to mayors and to cities. So along with this mayor and these two mayors, they founded the Climate Mayors. And that is not now, the Climate Mayors are co-chaired by Mayor Ruggiero, who's here today from Knoxville. If you could stand up and just be recognized. And Mayor Turner from Houston, who I know is coming. I don't think he's here yet. But I want to introduce the mayor, who is the birth father of the Climate Mayors, who is, I've known this mayor for a while. I've watched him in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I've always been impressed. But I actually yesterday went to Wikipedia for the first time. And after reading through half of it, I put my phone down and I said, I'm just a slacker. I've done nothing in my life. I mean, the guy has done so much and so many different things. And you understand why he is the birth father of Climate Mayors. But I want to introduce the mayor from America's second largest city, a city that is leading in so many different ways, the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Good morning. Aloha. Okay, I'm going to put this right here so it's close by, just for now. Let's give it up for our host mayor. Kirk Caldwell is such an amazing human being. And Donna and Maya, thank you for your hospitality as well. I think all of us who are mayors are so lucky to have this fraternity and sorority of brother and sister mayors. And whether it's my Jewish half saying that you're a mensch or my Mexican half saying you're un buen hombre, you are truly a good human being. And we love that we are going to be here for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We love that you are hosting us, and we know how much work goes into this. We'll all be working really hard. He'll be working 10 times harder with 75 things. So thank you, Kirk, for everything that you are doing and for your leadership on this issue as well. And thank you also to the head of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Steve Benjamin, who is here with us as well, who I wanted to single out and thank. It is the beginning of the goodbye tour, I know, this week. And I'm sure you are the happiest of all, but you have put in an extraordinary year leading us, the Mayor of Mayors, and another dear friend. And thank you for making time to be here a day early and to be a part of this. Let's give it up for Steve Benjamin as well. And to Mayor O'Hara and Mayor Walsh, thank you as co-chairs for the work that you did in Boston, really setting the stage for us to come together to do this here in Honolulu. And thank you for the way that you've taken on making sure we don't just stand up for what's right, but we find a way to help each other in terms of implementing how to do that stuff that is right. And I'm so glad that the second annual Climate Mayors Summit here in Honolulu, last year we didn't know who would come. We had a great turnout with a couple dozen. This year we're just short of 60 mayors. And each year we see this as growing and growing and growing together, also, of course, with our partnership with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. No matter where we're from in the United States, you know, I think all of our families are jealous when we said we had to come to Honolulu to do some work. Some of them came with us, but we know that the postcard perfect picture that all Americans have top of our mind when they imagine this pristine, this pristine set of islands could soon only exist in our memories. And think about Waikiki, where we're staying. 15 years from now, it could be gone. Right now, it's disappearing at the rate of about a foot a year. Carbon dioxide levels recently measured at the Mauna Loa Observatory were the highest in 3 million years. A few months back, the unthinkable happened when we saw piles of snow dumped in Maui. And it's not just happening here. In Southern California, we've seen historic fires that are bigger and bigger each year. Temperatures in Austin are soaring to triple digits every year. And massive floods put Hamburg, Iowa, recently underwater just a few weeks ago. So the work that we do as mayors, everything else we do, paving streets, answering 911 calls, putting forward an economic development plan, all of this is literally going to be swamped year after year by what we're facing. For anybody who doesn't think this is real, mayors are the perfect witnesses to say not only is this real, but this should command everything that we have and what we are capable of. How do we redesign the infrastructure of the future? How do we raise up the next generation of scientists and artists, dreamers and doers? Because at this rate, climate change may erase everything else that we're doing. It's never been more intense. There's no greater threat to our security, to our economic well-being, to the very survival of future generations. But for all the doom and gloom, it's strange, somebody's going to come up with a good name for this, but most crises, the further in you get, the more expensive and more difficult it is to get out. But what's strange with this one is the longer we wait, the cheaper and faster the solutions are, which is good news. In other words, the longer we have waited, unfortunately, with inaction, the price of alternative energy has come down, the political will has become faster. Things that seemed totally ambitious just 2 or 3 years ago now seem meek. That's good news for us as political leaders, because as mayors, as problem solvers, as doers, we know that we can not only sell that message because we connect with people at the level where they live, but we also are the ones who are the entrepreneurs, who will test things and try things. And I think in this area, mayors are no longer saying, well, let another city figure out first. We are saying, let me try it right now. And if it does work, I'm going to pass it on to my colleagues. Everyone in this room knows that this is not just a climate emergency, but there's also a massive economic opportunity if we are one of the first cities, or collectively the first cities, to get it right. We aren't just mayors today, we are climate mayors. We represent now 425 cities across America, 71 million Americans in our jurisdiction. And if you took our metro areas, it would probably be north of double of that. And we have every state except 2. So here's, I was joking, you get a $500 bonus if you can get a mayor from either one of these states, except the 2 Dakotas. So we have now 48 states represented. We are Republicans, Democrats, Independents. We're CEOs of big and small cities, north and south, urban and rural. But we're traveling with one mission, shoulder to shoulder down the same pathway, to address our environmental crisis while also building more economic equity. Those 2 things together probably address the greatest insecurities our people feel, right? Will there be a future? And will there be a place in the economy for me in that future? So I can't imagine a more fitting place to be or a more fitting principle than cacao. Is that the right way to pronounce it? kako, which means we're all in this together, literally. And no city will be able to shoulder this on our own. And that's why we founded this network 5 years ago, as was mentioned with Mayor Nutter and Mayor Parker at the time. The initial goal was just to build that grassroots movement to support implementation of what we saw, and many of us even traveled to Paris to do, to make a historic human agreement to control the rise in our temperature on this earth. Fast forward to today, after that one day when the White House announced the decision to withdraw from Paris, we knew we had to step up. By the end of that day, over 100 mayors had said yes. It was incredible. I didn't personally pick up the phone and talk to 100 mayors. I talked to 5, then 5 talked to 5 of their friends, 5 talked to 5 of their friends, and in a single day, this network of mayors stood up. And I've talked to so many leaders around the world, heads of state. Justin Trudeau, when he visited Los Angeles, he's like, thank you for showing that America wasn't just defined by any one person. It was defined by us collectively. You see, Washington doesn't give us power. We give Washington power, and we showed that then. And we made ourselves the field marshals in this fight, addressing block-to-block conditions because we know them, while protecting our cities from fires and floods and famine. We are using the Climate Mayors platform to fight for every city to get the resources that you need. So this is your organization. This is not the organization of any one of us or 3 of us or 5 of us. This is your organization. Make it what you need and own it. We have to lead by example, hand in hand, to show that economies prosper when we address climate change. And we've all, I think, been excited to hear Washington talk about a Green New Deal. Well, they still have yet to define that. And one of my messages has been, don't look across the aisle in Washington to find out what the Green New Deal is. Just look across the country, and you'll see it. In Los Angeles, we kicked off our own Green New Deal, creating a model that I hope will be inspiring to the nation as well. We said we would be a carbon-neutral city by 2050, a place where every building will be emissions-free, 80% of vehicles will be zero emissions by 2035, we'll become the biggest, we hope, zero-waste city in the country where we won't send a single piece of waste to the landfill, and we will recycle 100% of our wastewater while powering our homes with 100% percent clean energy. Those 5 things are easy to say, but immensely difficult to do. We know that as mayors. And oftentimes people say, oh, we're going to make the promises that a mayor after us is going to have to do, but we've all gotten the baton from previous mayors who have made those promises, and we have accelerated them. So I have faith that we'll be part of a lifetime movement to make this happen. You know, a lot of people think of Los Angeles as this very environmental town. They don't realize that Los Angeles sits atop the largest urban oil field in America. There are 2 larger oil fields in the United States of America, one in Alaska and one in Texas, and neither of them have cities on top of them. Mayor of Carson knows very well because it sits on top of this place that has still continued to churn out a town that really came to be because it was with oil and gas history, not because of Hollywood. And though our civic identity has shifted towards environmentalism, we're in many ways ground zero. A lot of folks have paychecks that come from working on gas lines or in refineries, and the work that we have to do to reassure them, not in some vague way that, trust me, you'll be retrained for those jobs of the future, but connect them now with that, will help us make sure that the economic insecurity people feel will not slow down the environmental work that we need to do. And it would be easy for me just to say that and pass that on to another mayor, but get this statistic. In 2016, the last year we were able to measure in a large way, we reduced our carbon emissions in a single city, second biggest city in America, by 11%. Huge amount in 1 year. But that's not the applause line quite yet, and you don't have to applause after this. But we reduced our unemployment by 14% that same year. So that old trope that we can't do both together is gone and dead. In fact, we think it's because we were reducing our emissions by that much. The 35,000 new green jobs have been created in Los Angeles in the last 6 years. That's more than all the coal jobs lost in America, and we're 1% of the population. So get with it, cities, for your economic success, if not also for your environmental success. That 11% reduction was the equivalent, just to picture that, in the car capital of America, of taking 737,000 cars off the road for good in a single year's action. So by 2050, our goal in our town is to create 400,000 jobs that are local, middle class, can't be outsourced, in many cases union jobs. And the challenge before us isn't just to create jobs, it's to make sure that we bring our partners into the fold, whether it's from labor, or training workers in the industries of tomorrow, and also to be the first in transportation, in electricity, in buildings. People should be able to earn a living wage while they live on a living planet. That is the work that we have to do together. So let me tell you a little bit about where Climate Mayors comes into that work. Because I don't pretend that every city has the resources of some of our bigger cities like Los Angeles, and that's what Climate Mayors is there for. We have some amazing sustainability officers, chief sustainability officers. Lauren Faber-O'Connor is mine, who's standing right there in the red. Thank you, Lauren, for your great work. She's been one of the key staff members putting this forward. But not everybody has that in their budget. So we recently brought in somebody who's working for all of us now. So James Rachat, where's James? Over back there. Everybody turn around and look at him. Forget the rest of us. He's backlit, so you can't see the details of his face, but he is the new director of Climate Mayors. He's been on board now for about 9 months. He's based out of Washington, D.C., and he's the personal point of contact and support for cities who are looking to not only get into, but accelerate their work in the climate game. If your staff wants help drafting a zero-waste franchise agreement, if you're wanting to reach out to other cities in your state to bring a coalition together in your region for larger projects like your electricity generation, if you want to model legislation that will help retrofit your downtown skyline to be all electric, James is here to help you. He also runs our monthly calls where we have different mayors present. Many of you have done that before, and thank you. Present their progress, their ideas, and look at how we can replicate those elsewhere. And it takes a lot of people power to drive this conversation around this crisis. So we've also brought on a full-time communications firm, Bully Pulpit Interactive, to help you tell your story. We want you to win the political fight locally while we're winning the environmental fight globally. And this is really about making our voices heard, so don't be shy. Take this on, make this a core, as Mayor Caldwell did in his State of the City, and I did as well this year. This is increasingly what people want to hear. They want to know, is my anxiety going to be addressed by my political leaders? Or look at young people. Is it time to get rid of our generation of current political leaders? There is, through the eyes of young people right now, an urgency, and we are very pleased to have climate emergency folks, and I urge you to contact those students in your cities that are really driving this. If you're seeing what's happening in Europe, it is breathtaking to see Greta Lundberg, who is leading school strikes on climate throughout. I think there's been 1.5 million European students that have walked out of their schools in recent months to say, you've given this to us and we're not going to take it. We need to celebrate each other's successes, help each other when we face a climate emergency like the deadly heat wave that's striking Paris and other cities in Europe right now. Writing a responsive op-ed or getting on a national news show isn't always at the top of your mind, maybe when your communication staff is trying to manage that morning crisis, but we want you to connect nationally and globally. And so we are here to give that voice. And from unexpected places. It shouldn't just be the big city mayors or the blue states. We want people who are showing that this is an American fight across our country. This ambition is not abstract because cities are laboratories of action. And so we remember that we are in this together, to support each other, to help each other, and Climate Mayors is here to help you. We're here to help you build coalitions, to help you transform your building trades, and to save the world. So use us. Use this network as a resource. Let us help you transition your oil town to an EV capital. Let us help you adapt green technologies that meet the needs of your particular town. And let us help you take the necessary political risks that are hard to do on your own, because it is better for all of us to fail forward than to be stuck in the past. We cannot afford that. So I'm going to turn the podium over, but I hope that you take advantage of everything that today has to offer. We'll talk some more at lunch when we have kind of our private mayor's meeting about leadership in this group too, that we hope to continue to expand and extend to you no matter where you are, to get that representative piece of America that people can look at as well. And we'll also be asking you survey questions throughout the day, so please participate on your phone. We want to make sure that Climate Mayors is here to support you. And I'll end with this. Some of you may know the poem that the poet Robert Browning wrote about Andrea del Sarto, a great Italian artist. And there's a line in it that's, that folks have said over the years, but that I love when I was thinking about this speech. And he said, "A man's reach must always exceed his grasp. And in this day and age, it should be a person's reach must always exceed their grasp." In other words, we reach for things we may not be able to hold. And I thought about the folks who set out from Tahiti to come here for the first time. Maybe the first ones didn't make it here so that others could. Or the slaves that fought for their freedom while dying in chains because they knew that maybe their children would one day be free. the women who've sought to, this year we celebrate 100 years of women being able to vote in this country, and for African American women that's only been decades less than that, but never got to vote in a presidential election. GIs who set off to fight for freedom and didn't come home. Our reach must always exceed our grasp. In other words, we reach for things we might not be able to hold. And the second line of that poem says, after all, what's a heaven for? I would say, after all, what is this earth for, if not that? So let us continue to reach. Let us hope that we or our children will be able to grasp the work that we have done and look back and say, this was the turning point. Thank you all so much.
Wow, what an awesome speech from both of you. Thank you